who going there?
Oh, yeah.
Nice. All right. 3, 2, 1. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Club. I'm Alex.
I'm Pete.
And we are coming to you live from the internet. Justin? Justin. Yeah, we're working out some tech issues. Justin is upstate, so we're going to keep trying to pull him into the feed here. We will see exactly what happens. If it works, we don't know. He's going to try to call in on a phone or something like that. But we do have two amazing guests for you guys today, regardless of whether Justin is able to hack into our feed or not. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, hello, you're awesome.
Hey, the tube.
Hey, the tube. Give us a little bit of a thumbs up there if you are there. We're going to get to your questions later on in the show. If you're watching here on Crowdcast, drop your questions and ask a question, and we will get to those later in the show as well. But yeah, in the meantime, Pete, how are you doing? I heard you got a cat, or there's just a cat wandering around your apartment or something like that?
Yeah, well, we have a cat in our house that we're living in here in West Philly. So yeah, just living that cat life, which is new for me.
Living that cat life. That's amazing. What is different about the cat life for you?
Well, cats don't like people, like they put up with them. Hey! JT says.
Yeah. See, there's the problem. You're trying to hook your microphone webcam up to a tree.
Yeah, this little honey-filled knot doesn't have internet that I'm living
in. Weird. Usually does.
Oh, man.
What's up?
Well, not much. Thanks for joining the show. Glad to see you. I was
Justin, just a heads up. We do the show every Tuesday. So if you could clear your schedule, that'd be great.
That's great. Yeah, I just totally forgot about this thing I've been doing every week for 13 years.
Yeah.
I'm
I think
in the
it's
woods.
more than 13 at this point, buddy.
Well, there's the 1 year we don't talk about. I'm in the woods, and that's why it took longer because of woods things. And I'm on the run. I still have a drink.
Nice.
Let's talk.
Very nice.
Let's talk. So what do we review beaver dams on this, or is it what do we do?
So I would say let's talk about the first one. This is a very sturdy dam, and I'm very excited to talk about it. It's made out of a nice oak, right?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, most beaver dams are solid oak. Clearly a country boy, Alex Zalbin here.
Yep, that's me. All right, tell you what, I'm going to invite our first guest into the stream here. He is the creator of a comic called The Eighth that we're going to talk about in a moment. He is also the writer and director of Escape the Night. Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Lawson!
Hey!
Welcome!
How are you doing, Adam? Thanks for your patience. Sorry it took a while to get set up there.
No, it's no problem. There's always a catch in the beginning, and I'm always that guy who's sitting here at my computer being like, I'm the guy they're pissed at because I'm not joining and I've done something wrong.
No,
even
that
though
was
I've done
me.
it 100 times. Yeah,
that was definitely me this time.
Yes,
so
but it's usually Pete.
No, I like your background though. I like the dartboard in the background.
Dartboard action.
The dartboard is epic. I will admit that. I'm in my soon-to-be in-laws' garage, and so posted up.
Well, soon do congratulations to you, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, it was gonna happen in May, but then there was an event that happened around the world, and now we hope it happens in September.
That's good. Good plan. Tell me more about this event you're talking about. Because,
some people call it a wedding.
I haven't noticed anything.
Yeah, we were gonna have a wedding, and then there was this pandemic, and then people got a disease, and then all of our relatives decided they would never show up, and the venue, of course, said we can't do that kind of thing. So we're just making the best of it. And,
I hope you're not too hurt that that your love is not important in their lives. It's got to be tough.
I was a little bit upset. I thought, you know what, I'm going to call my governor and say, dude, you clearly don't believe in my relationship. And that's painful. I want
little help here.
Yeah, a little help.
Try to start my life.
Well, I would say luckily, though, sort of on the flip side, on the positive side, since you haven't had to worry about the wedding immediately, you've probably had a little more time to concentrate on the 8th and the Kickstarter that you have running, which has been hugely successful.
You are too kind. Yeah, I would say too. Thank you guys. It's always with launching anything, whatever it is, a TV show, a movie, the various things I've done, there's always this sense of sheer dread right before it goes out into the world, because you think, you know what, actually, this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. Or actually, other thought I had about what the plot should have been, that's what it should have been. And then you're like, it's sitting in people, and you're just sitting in people's hands, and the reviews are coming in, and you're like, I don't know if I can open that email. But then, you realize it worked. And every time it's like a mystery of like, oh, I can't believe people liked my stuff. How did that happen?
It's the classic "what have I done" moment, and then you're like, "Oh, it's good. I did a good thing."
It worked. And then of course you tout all these really special moments. It created the inspiration, but sometimes maybe it's just kind of a lot of fumbling around. But yeah, so it's been really exciting, and I think we went with something kind of bold. I made a 200-page graphic novel and made it hardcover with a slipcase, and for the first campaign. So why not go big? I thought, well, that's what I want to collect. So let's do that. So I went for something ambitious, and I've been working on it for the last couple of years. Anyways, in between TV shows, I buy storyboard artist. I turned him into my comic artist, and which is what he really wants to do.
That's awesome.
Anyways, he hates storyboard. He wants to do comic books. So it was this thing I was just paying for out of my pocket. I thought, oh well, when I'm done with all 8 issues, I'll launch this thing. And then once again, a pandemic hit, and I thought, you know what? Let's just do it now. I've done 5 of them. Let's go for it. I now have the time to, be at the computer and monitoring this campaign and all the things that come with it. So.
Well, I really like that. I mean, that's one of the things that I think is really smart about the way that you hit this Kickstarter is it's 8 issues long. It's 200 pages, like you said, but you completed 5 of the issues already. Like, I feel like that's many people jump into the Kickstarter being like, I got nothing. Give me money for that. But you're promising that we're 5/8 of the way there. Just help us get past that finish line.
Right. And one of the cool things I thought, we're 5 in. So actually, right as the campaign closes, which it just closed and it's in demand now, but then people could digitally start getting the issues every month, like you were collecting them at the comic book shop. And then I'll be able to get the last couple of issues done. We completed issue 6, by the way. So over the campaign. And so you'll actually be able to get it right away instead of then you put your money in and then 9 months later a book shows up and you're like, what was that again?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's that cool mini. I don't know if you know this board game company. I've backed so many of their board games, and they show up like over a year later. And so when it shows up, I can't even remember what the game is about.
Oh, wow.
Because it's like was I gonna like that?
Something with a pogo stick, I think. I don't quite remember what this is. Let's play.
Well, speaking of which, to jog people's memories / inform them, what's the concept to the 8th? What's the pitch for the 8th?
Okay, so the 8th is the story about a troubled teenager, David Wells, and his friends Emma and Atticus. And he is a math genius who solved a millennium math problem. And he's in this small broke town, except solving that problem didn't solve his life problems. His brother committed suicide as a result of bullying, and his mother is very depressed about it. And his world is simply out of his control, like many teenagers feel, right? It's plagued with traumatic things, and you don't have the coping skills yet. And so, and he and his friends and his aunt are at this, they're scavenging a burned out house for anything because they have a pawn shop. And he finds this, what he doesn't realize is a piece of ancient Sumerian armor. And there's math symbols tied into it. And he solves the equation. And it opens up this piece of armor, which just covers just his arm. And he uses mathematics to actually manipulate it. That's the language that it speaks in, right? So he's got to run equations that know that's really his superpower. And so he gets this taste of it and he decides, let me make the world different. I know how to get it to change. I'll make it that way. So he goes and mangles some bullies at school. And by mangling them, he shatters their spines, puts them in the hospital, ruins them for life.
Wow.
Because once again, the power is something he doesn't understand. And he's also a teenager who doesn't quite understand the impact of violence. Not really, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so so at first he feels like, great, I'm fixing it. The school gets better. But then violence begets violence. And then soon people he loves are killed. And he realizes his error that you can't make the world change, right? You can't make it do things. And And so, leaving their hometown in ashes, this trio heads out to find the other pieces of the armor and the other pieces of themselves. And each of them has a different play in it, right? That Emma, she sees the armor as a way to get revenge, right? She's got hate sort of as her drive, and she wants revenge for things that have happened to her. And David wants to make the world, right? I think so. I think we all get that, right?
Really dove in on that.
He did not.
Revenge. I want revenge. I want to read this. I need revenge.
And David wants to make the world better, to fix this broken world. And then Atticus, he's the most sound person that's saying, hey, listen, we got to get away from this altogether, because it's actually going to destroy us and those we care about. So those are kind of like the three spectrums. And because of their reaction to this trauma, it's what kind of gives their friendship its ups and downs and its struggles throughout the story. And there's this unrequited romance between Emma and David. And there's also, I think, at its its sick core, it's teens who don't know how to cope with trauma, right? And it spills out into the world. And I think what I wanted to do with this was to, in a Spider-Man comic book, he punches a guy in the face, the bank robber, and then he takes him to jail, and the guy's got a bruise. But if you could lift a tank, you wouldn't get a bruise if somebody punched you.
Yeah.
Your skull would be mush. And so there's this kind of little lie sometimes in comic books where we cite the power, but not the real consequence of that usage of it, right? And so I wanted this story to be about, they get power, but then there's real consequences directly tied to it, and how that changes people when you have real consequences versus, he's got that bruise from that punch that would have knocked over a skyscraper, and so that's, I think, part of what I went into it with. And so that's the tale, and sort of the myth around it is it deals with ancient Samaria, right? That this armor is a piece of ancient Sumerian armor that belonged to these things called the sages. And in history, there's 7 of them. They were like divine beings, angels of some kind, that imparted knowledge to mankind. But in this story, there was an 8th one that wasn't in history, hence the title, and its job was to be the destroying angel, like the cleanup crew. And so what's cool is it gets to tie back into advanced technology and cool things from an ancient world, which I always sort of love, right? And some of the characters deal with people like around the flood of Noah, and these, it's kind of like the times, like there was the flood, which kind of like ended the reign of the sages, and then now. So there's some cool throwbacks to these sort of ancient, Abrahamic myths that kind of makes it grounded. And so that's the tale. And and it stems from, I think, from a personal standpoint, my own life as a teenager, when I had a friend commit suicide from bullying that I couldn't do anything about, and then my love of ancient Sumerian myth and like these myths that tease at fantasy. And like I thought, well, maybe I'll stick this together. And that's what became the 8th is what came out of that marriage.
Wow.
Yeah, cool. I love the idea, that creative force of taking these big ideas from history or mythology and combining it with like deeply personal things and sort of stepping into both like one by one. Because I think, like you laid it out, it's very logical. Like if a teenager had these powers, it wouldn't go quite like Spider-Man is making quips. He'd be wrecking shit. Sure. And so building it out that way like leads to this like sort of more momentous story, I think.
Thank you. I hope it does. And I mean, Spider-Man is amazing for what it is, but this is maybe my version of what that would be. And that's the cool part, right, about comic books and the world of them. It's like you get to pick the ones you like. In the chat earlier, they were talking about Paper Girls, which is a comic book I loved on Image. Great book, right? And it's its own fun thing. And so, so that's why, as I write and direct television for most of my life, but then this is a fun departure because I don't have all those rules of TV. I have new ones, but they're
budget.
Fun. That's right. I mean, the amount of when I come back to a network, I'm a showrunner. So when I come back to the network and say, here's what I'm going to do, and it's going to cost this much, there's always this like silence for a couple weeks, and then they're screaming at agents and people saying, how is it going to cost this much? And and then it's me going back into the president of the network saying, hey, but there's going to be this really cool scene. And then she's like, okay, we'll give you some more money,
Nice.
So I don't miss that part.
You don't miss talking to agents? Come on, it's everyone's favorite part about entertainment.
We love it. So
now that the Kickstarter is over, what is the best way of getting the book? What's the best way of getting in on the book?
Yeah, so it's on Indiegogo right now, and so Indiegogo has something that's kind of similar to Kickstarter, where after your campaign's over, if you made your goal, it sits in a thing called In Demand. So essentially where people can still get the perks, still do everything like you were in the campaign. And it's kind of a way to say, hey, they know you need some time even after the campaign's over to finish building whatever it is before you put your print order in, so to speak. And so there's a chance for people to still get on and get the book and explore the world. Nice. And the first digital issue comes out next Wednesday, which all the tiers get. So you're going to get right into the action.
Awesome. Adam, congratulations. The book is fantastic. I'm very excited to check out more of it. There's a ton of pages, by the way, for anybody listening or watching that you can read through to get a sample of it. And it's really fun. It's good. And it's very brutal. Pete, you're going to like it a lot, I think.
Oh,
you checked it out.
I'm in.
So
I'm in.
Congratulations on everything.
It's hard because I'm trying not to stare because I'm just getting lost in your dartboard. It's like drawing me in.
It's a pretty amazing. So my soon-to-be brother-in-law built this. Into the back of it is all corks, right? All wine.
Yeah,
corks.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. He built this out.
Cool.
He's a bartender, and so he built the perfect, dartboard, of course.
Amazing.
And
Nice.
I wish I was really good at it, but I sure like to play. You know what I mean?
You got time to practice.
Yeah, right. And I feel like, oh man, and you get back with the darts, and you sometimes give it your all, and it's usually less than an embarrassment, but fun.
Yeah. Just get great at darts. Forget about planning a wedding, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, all come together.
I'm sure your partner will be like, yeah, he's really good at darts. That's enough for me.
Yeah, he's married to the dartboard, basically.
Yeah. She's like, I made the right choice. Darts. That's what's going to hold us through.
I've always wanted to be married to a professional dart player.
You found two of them on the planet, and you've noticed.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Adam, congratulations again. Everybody go check out The 8th. Thanks so much for coming on. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Hey, guys.
Great
thanks
to
so
talk
much,
to you, man.
everyone.
Safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Once again, that's The 8th. Check that out on Indiegogo from Adam Lawson. Super good book, super fun. Clearly, like crazy amount of people pledging it and picking it up, which is fantastic. Justin, quick question while we bring in our next guest. What is it like starring in the remake of Under the Tuscan Sun?
It's beautiful. You should see the pastas I'm eating.
Well, it looks like you're in an ad for Sabra right now,
Oh, great.
Sabra, the hummus?
Two great references from my co-hosts here, Under the Tuscan Sun and a Sabra hummus commercial. Just to give you a sense of how these two gentlemen are spending their quarantines. Taking in content. Yes, the sun is intense. Maybe this is not the time for the story of where I am, but I'm at my mom's house and the router is right over there. But also that's where all the children and things are. So that's why I'm out here getting a light tan. It's gonna really look great on just this one side of my face.
Yeah.
If you could, it would make me a little more comfortable if you could put some large shears behind you right here, because then I would feel like we're really doing the show. You usually have those behind you.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm not in a park. I'm way upstate New York near the Canadian border. There's a lovely lake over here. I'll show it later once the sun is truly not quite so intense on my face.
Wow. Are you making a run for the border right now, man?
Very close to the border. The border's pretty closed, so they don't want us there.
Okay.
But I'm just going to be ready. Like how, a racer puts their like little foot at the edge of the white line before the gun goes off.
Yeah. Well, looks like our next guest is coming in here.
Nice hallway shot.
An empty room.
It is.
He's going to make an entrance. He's gonna burst out of that cabinet.
You think?
Well, when he does show up, it is one of our favorite guests of the show, Daniel Kibblesmith.
There we go.
Oh, what an entrance!
I've been down there since 3:30 in the afternoon.
Wow.
Hey, how are we doing?
Hey.
I love it. Thank you for your patience with everything. How are you doing, man?
I'm okay.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm indoors. I'm in of doors for the foreseeable past and future. But I'm okay. I'm working from home, like people do if they are able now. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. We always love having you on the show.
Best entrance so far. So
absolutely.
I'm playing with the medium. Yeah. It seemed like if we were doing this in the theater, you come out from backstage. Right. So I was trying to figure out how is that even done in 2020?
You killed
it. We'll have to have you back on next week. See if maybe you can hang from the ceiling.
Yeah, you
slowly lower your head down.
Yeah. I'm thinking Spider-Man kiss for the next one.
Mm-hmm. I'm always thinking Spider-Man kiss.
Did you say Ben there?
Yes, famously Spider-Man kiss, Pete.
Yeah,
it's a seminal moment.
Everybody remembers.
Yeah,
everybody remembers their first Spider-Man kiss.
Well, actually, Justin did it for it was for Pulp Secret, the web show that we did, right?
Yes, we were doing a web show with this company for a while, and it was Spider-Man week when I want to say the very first Spider-Man or second one came out, and they had me go to the trapeze school in Manhattan. And I did a bunch of tricks and then begged this woman in the class to kiss me like the Spider-Man kiss, and she did it.
Phenomenal.
Very nice.
And now you're married.
And now we're married.
That's how I met your mother.
Yeah, exactly. It crushed at the wedding. The reception. Everyone loved that story.
We did. Do you guys know that I had Spider-Man at my wedding? For real?
You're gonna have to give some more information on that.
Yeah. So my best man hired a mutual friend to during his best man speech. This mutual friend came out in a Spider-Man costume as a surprise and roasted me mercilessly.
Wow,
Spider-Man roasted you.
Yep, and he said that he hated me. He wanted me to stop reading his comic books and that I had wasted my life.
Wow. Oh, that's a little harsher than a regular roast, I guess.
It's pretty good. It was pretty good, yeah. To answer a question in the chat, he did not swing in, but he did climb on a bunch of stuff when he was posing for photographs with our relatives.
Wow,
that's
awesome. Nice
cool.
That Spidey stuck around and posed for some pics.
Yeah, well, he loves doing that. I mean, it's if you know one thing about Spider-Man, it's that he always plays around for the photograph.
Yeah. And he's still there, right? He's in your apartment with you to this day.
Yep, he's a crucial ingredient of our marriage.
That's the thing about weddings is if you can make a mistake and accidentally marry yourself to whoever happens to be close to you when the minister or whatever says I do stuff.
That's it. It's classic unintentional Spider-Man throuple.
That's why I have several birds that were just flying by at my wedding. And I got to take care of them. They're not even parrots.
Let's not talk about thruples. Let's talk about couples instead. Specifically, there was a book you wanted to chat about, the Midnighter book from DC Rebirth. This is something that we've been doing the past couple of weeks. We've been having guests on talking about some of their favorite runs. And you mentioned you were super into this. It was the Midnighter reboot. Eventually it became Midnighter and Apollo as part of Rebirth, not New 52. What was it that drew you to that book in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I feel terrible because of COVID, I kind of have nothing going on. I would love to talk about my own work, but there's very little of it at the moment. So what happened instead was that I got to do a big reread during quarantine, and the thing that kind of got me through it was the new-ish post-Rebirth Midnighter books. And I think that why Midnighter and why now? And I should say these are written by Steve Orlando with a number of artists, all of them amazing. ACO, Echo. Does anyone know?
Sure.
I've never heard it aloud, but the first volume is drawn by capital ACO. I really, really loved these, and they spoke to me during this time because they're hyper violent. Obviously, if anybody knows Midnighter, they know he's a character defined. Yeah, it's a Wolverine, Punisher, Deadpool kind of violence. But he is a trauma survivor. He's a member of a marginalized group, which most of the hyperviolent characters are not. And he occupies this sweet spot, I think, in the way that comic books can use violence to create feelings of catharsis without crossing the line too far into him being a bad guy. Mm-hmm. Like, if you see somebody with a Punisher tattoo, you got to like take a second and figure out what their deal is. If you see somebody with a Midnighter tattoo, you're just like, yeah, he's a good guy.
Nah.
Midnighter's like a dad sometimes. Punisher's a dad sometimes too, but it's different.
Yeah. Pete, you're a big fan of Midnighter, and you like this series a lot. What drew you to it? What did you like about it?
Yeah, I loved it very much. I mean, Midnighter to me is one of my favorite characters. I love the fact that they don't dwell on his preferences. It's just a part of who he is, and it's just a kind of just there. And what's great about Midnighter is what he's willing to put on the line for others, like how hard he fights, how hard he tries, how he never gives up. He is just a force of nature in such a interesting way. And also, I also love Apollo and him together are just such a great kind of fun the Superman and the kind of Batman kind of, if you will, a little bit. And it's just really great. And I think Steve Orlando did their kind of like love story thing a little bit, where it wasn't like their love story, but Midnighter had to go to hell to save Apollo. And it was just really beautiful, the way that they kind of laid it out, and kind of all the things that and they ended really well too, and it was very powerful. It's just one of my favorite characters. It's just and especially when done well, like Steve Orlando is such a great writer. It's just one of those quietly amazing comics that aren't as popular as some of the others.
Well, what I love about it is of all these dark brooding characters we're talking about, none of them really have a ton of stable relationships.
Yeah.
And the Midnighter and Apollo relationship, really, especially in this series, it's such the motivating force, and it really, that's the difference maker for me. No matter what's going, how violent it gets, it's for a purpose that is deeply tied to Midnighter's core.
Yeah, that was my only skepticism going in, was that it necessitated splitting them up at first. Yeah. And to me, that's very Clark and Lois, or Scott and Barda. It's oh no, that's not like Spider-Man, where he has different girlfriends. This is like a real one.
Yeah.
Don't mess with my ships. I really like the way that it all played out. I thought it was very nice.
Do you think if Mephisto stepped in and was like, Midnighter, would you I just have to do this thing?
That's kind of the arc of Apollo and Midnighter, because Neron.
Yeah.
So I doubt very much that it was any kind of response.
I love that idea.
But it weirdly mirrors One More Day in an interesting way. It also reminded me of, if any Swamp Thing fans are listening, where he goes to hell for Abby.
Yeah.
It was very similar, just playing on the way that these characters inhabit actual mythology and not just pop culture mythology.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things that Steve Orlando does really well, beyond the fact that he puts so much emotion into his characters, is he's able to mine all these different aspects of the universe, the DC universe in this case, and make them work in a very powerful way. So there might have been a very purposeful, this is kind of the Swamp Thing storyline, but I'm picking and choosing what I want to use and mixing it in there. Taking Neron, who, I don't know. I mean, I didn't read Underworld Unleashed or anything like that, but I know I've seen it.
Alex.
I know. The
Underworld was unleashed. It's been under the world. It came up and out.
Sorry. But that's a storyline that I've seen made fun of for decades at this point. So the fact that he took Neron and made him a real threat and a real emotional crux for the storyline is so smart and so good, and really points to his skill as a writer.
Yeah, and you also it's also so undeniable that Steve Orlando is a Grant Morrison guy. And the only other Neuron story I'm really familiar with off the top of my head is from JLA. Is from those years. So yeah, that guy he's encyclopedic. It's Steve Orlando on every level is such an intimidating creator. So that was the thing. I had a friend, a collaborator actually, my friend Ashley Quach, who has illustrated a couple of books I've written, told me or maybe tweeted that she could only listen to the Wu-Tang Clan right now. Like the conditions were as such that she could only listen to the Wu-Tang Clan right now. And I realized I was doing that with Midnighter. I need to see a fundamentally good guy kicking the heads off of some irredeemably bad guys.
That's great.
Now, you do have some stuff that you are working on, though. I know you were kind of demure about it at the beginning, but you have a story coming up in Harley Black, White, and Red, right?
I do. That's the next thing. The next thing I have on the table, and I don't know which week my story comes out, but if y'all are familiar with Batman Black and White. Obviously. Oh, yeah. So under these conditions, a cool thing that DC is doing is a digital first Harley Quinn Black, White, and Red. So it's very much in the spirit of Batman Black and White, where we're doing these weekly digital first anthology stories that I think are also fairly inexpensive. And then eventually, God willing, they'll come out in print and people can buy them at their local comic book store. But in the meantime, what I did today was subscribed on Comixology. So every time a new weekly chapter rolls in, you'll get a story that is a black and white Harley Quinn story with splashes of red wherever the artist wants to emphasize that. And because it's Harley, I'm thinking a lot of clothing, a lot of makeup, and probably a lot of blood.
Yeah,
maybe like one of those like Bugs Bunny bundles of dynamite, like that might be red.
Oh yeah.
I have a chapter coming out in that in the very near future. So watch for that.
Well, I am curious about that. I mean, just to so each chapter is 99 cents. They just released the first one. I never know how to pronounce his name, but it was by Stepan Seftek.
Yes, who also did the graphic novel this year, which is extraordinary.
Yeah. And that story is great. It is very much like Harley keeps saying the word red over and over and over again. Was that an edict that they gave you? Were they like, you got to use the words black and white and red somewhere in there? Or was that just the first story they were kind of doing the opening salvo?
It's not an edict they gave me.
Okay. But now you're feeling bad, right? Like you did something.
I doubt very much it was an edict, period. But what I'm guessing is that the premise is so crisp. Like everybody knows what Batman Black and White, and like the opportunities, like the visual opportunities that affords, but also like the thematic opportunities that affords when you can do a story about a black and white world or a black and white morality or about police officers and their relationship with Batman. Like all of these cultural touchstones that we associate with that kind of binary concept. And then red means blood or passion or violence, like in the same language. So what I did, and what I assume the other creators are doing too, is just looked for opportunities to use red as an exclamation point, or for, in the case of this first story, for emphasis, which is something, I know, like, is pretty common in comics and movies. I know The Sixth Sense and Hellboy, the Guillermo del Toro first Hellboy, both of those directors have talked a lot about how red is extremely significant in the film, and you can always tell like when something is like charged or magical in their world because it'll be like this red pop. And Harley Quinn just lends herself to that. She's monochromatic, plus blood, plus dynamite, plus lipstick.
Yeah.
Another project that you have going on, Loki, had going on. It's collected now. Is the collection out or is it coming out soon?
The collection is out. Yeah.
The collection is out. Okay.
Yeah. The most recent substantial thing I've had come out is the Loki paperback, which is in stores now. So that's the first, the only 5 issues of our Loki run. Oh, it's okay. Hey, Ray, your congressman.
It was so much fun, man.
Yeah, it was a fun story.
Yeah,
and for those
really
who
liked
pick it
it.
up, what I thought was so great about it is like, beyond the fact that you really got Loki and you set up this fun world that potentially could have gone farther, which I think we talked about the last time you were on the show. It really tied up nicely, and there were jokes and bits and plot points that you set up in the first issue that paid off in the last issue. So it's a really nice package, even if sadly it does only have those 5 issues.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm hoping. We leave off on this crazy cliffhanger that I would love to resume at some points, but whenever I get to write for Marvel or DC, I just feel so lucky and grateful to be in that sandbox that I kind of write like it's going to be my last chance. So if you read Loki, it's got a lot crammed into it.
Yeah.
It kind of ends up being a version of our entire statement on the character. That being said, we were hoping to go 60 issues or something. So if you read issue 5, there's a lot of like fun, like kind of meta jokes about how we have to wrap things up quickly. But I think it's worth it. And because of that, because we kind of have our cake and eat it too, we have this huge cliffhanger in issue 4, but then we have this surprise wrap up in issue 5. When we found out that we weren't getting renewed, you end up with this very, and I hope for Loki fans or for new comic book readers, you end up with this very self-contained, digest of Loki comics, like a kind of single-serving Loki comic. And then if you like that, the most logical thing to do is to read Agents of Asgard, with Lee Garbett and Al Ewing that came right before us, that inspired us, and then that's a little longer. And then if you like that, you read all of the Kieran Gillen stuff, and that's a little longer and more complicated. Right. So I think we're in a really good position to have this kind of bookstore book that fans of Loki from the movie and the forthcoming TV show can pick up and work backwards from there if they want to, read all of it and get to Walt Simonson. Which ideally they should read all of it and get to Walt Simonson.
You're always just tracking back to old Walt.
Yeah, track it back to Kirby. Just go, man.
Yeah.
1961.
Hey, I'll just read you a nice comment here on YouTube from Bert Ramdam says, hate that Loki got canceled. It was so good.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I respectfully agree. That's very kind.
Bold position.
Daniel, anything else you want to plug? Anything else going on other than being trapped inside?
Anything else I want to plug? All of my favorite, Marvel stuff is out in paperback now. You can get Loki, Lockjaw, Black Panther versus Deadpool. I worked on a Spider-Verse story for kids that was really fun. Nice. And I'm super proud of that, where Spider-Man joins Instagram and he becomes an influencer, and it goes bad. And then I don't know when my Harley Quinn story drops. So if I were you, I would just subscribe to Harley Quinn Black, White, and Red. It's 99 cents an issue, and it's a murderer's row of creators. When I found out who my artist was, I lost my mind. So hopefully people get as excited when they see who I was paired with.
Are you allowed to say, or
no?
No.
I
have to ask. As Justin likes to say, we're journalists. So
no, they will send me dynamite.
Okay.
Very
but it's Walt Simonson. It's definitely Walt Simonson.
It's Walt Simonson.
Yes. Yeah. All right, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on the show. Always good seeing you.
Thank you for having me. I would love to come back anytime. And I also don't know how to close this. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, job. Bye. All right, there we go.
Crush
Daniel Kibblesmith. Yes, definitely pick up all of his stuff. Pick up Harley Black, White, and Red whenever that's coming out. I guess we'll stay tuned for that. Also, definitely pick up the Loki trade paperback. It's a lot of fun. It's a really good story. Highly recommend it.
I feel like we've been talking a lot lately about like comedy comics and how hard that is, and I feel like he is just great at it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Definitely agree. Oh, yes, Pete.
Justin, can you just go and knock on one of those trees and get some Keebler cookies?
Yeah. I honestly, though, the Keebler elves, assholes, stingy with the cookies. Like, man, they don't give them away.
Don't meet your heroes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know who my heroes are? My heroes are the audience, and that means it's time for your audience questions.
That's true. Alex says anytime he gets in danger, the audience will come and save him because they're his heroes.
Like that time I was tied to the railroad tracks. You remember that. Now, for audience questions, all you have to do is drop a question and ask a question, or over on YouTube, just ask in the comments. We'll keep one eye on that. First of all, I do want to mention, this is going to make a lot of sense for folks who only listen to the podcast, but a bunch of comments on your haircut, Pete. Nice comments as well. We got Jace the Archer says, saw this was live on my drive home. Had to stop in for a sec to say, nice haircut, Pete.
Yeah, dude. Went to town on the clippers. You know, Liwana helped me make sure it doesn't look too bad, but you know, it's tough times. You know, I miss my barber.
Luana's your barber now.
Sad end to that compliment.
Yeah. Yes.
We also got another one here from Radlam says, greetings from Peru. Our quarantine ends today. Probably stay home reading comics for a while. That sounds like a good idea, Radlam. Not that we're doctors or scientists, but stay safe out there.
Yeah, please.
Should we start, since there's already a lot of talk about this, with what we're drinking tonight?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Justin, you're, of course, drinking sap directly from the tree.
Yep.
You should be.
I'm going to make a little maple syrup in my stomach and really enjoy that. I was drinking some red wine, a Cabernet Sauvignon. I need to get some more, though.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, if you want to go, if you want to step off and grab some, you're certainly welcome to.
Oh, you're trying to get me out of here. I got you.
Yeah. Pete, what about you? What are you drinking?
I was trying to look fancy, but it's Martinelli's sparkling cider, you know, a little fancy apple juice.
Oh, okay, because you're 12 and at a bar mitzvah. Is that what's happening?
Well, it's the stress is getting to me. I've been doing a lot of drinking and smoking, and I decided to try to take a break a little bit. You know, sometimes it can get too much.
That's nice. I'm having a Brooklyn Defender IPA.
Nice.
There you go.
Great stuff.
Superhero theme, and I believe that was introduced at New York Comic Con a couple of years ago.
It was, and I will say that's a strong IPA, Alex. It really checks out with your dedication to those.
Yeah, I like them. What can I say? I got it. I got taste, and I go for it. Here we go. We got a question over here from Cody Thomas. Which comic, TV, or movie do you think was improved by toning down the comic it was based on? Been reading The Boys and surprised how much different it was from the show. Show feels easier to connect to characters with it toned down. What do you think about that?
That's interesting.
I think that is I think The Boys specifically did a great job of taking the comic and truly adapting it for television, and picking out stuff from the comic they wanted to do, but also bringing in stuff from the real world that they wanted to comment on, and making a show that served the comic but also elevated the material.
Well, it's it's funny because we talk about Lock and Key and how the show kind of turned down the horror aspect a little bit, and then focus more on the family and different things. So it was different, and I think some of it definitely for the better, but there were some times that I missed it. Also, I remember when Walking Dead first came out, the TV show, and we were like, how are they going to do that? You know? So I think they did kind of pick their battles with that.
Yeah, they really toned that down.
I know, so chill. We were like, how are they going to do that? They're going to use real corpses? How are they going to make them walk? It's going to be crazy, whatever they do. Another show that I was just thinking of, Legion, I feel like it toned down the comic booky aspects of the show and elevated some very specific things that were quite
such an amazing show. If you haven't watched Legion, please check that out. You'll be happy you did.
It's great. All right, we got one here from YouTube. CT Kook says, if you could mash up a DC character and a Marvel, what two characters would you choose, and what would their name be? Classic amalgam universe question.
Yes.
What was it was Batman and Wolverine was Dark Claw? Is that right?
That is accurate, I believe.
Yeah, great. Pete,
nice
did you like Dark Claw?
Not really.
It's most of your favorite things in one place.
It is. It is. It's just one of those things where sometimes, too much is too much. You know, I don't know. I would feel like, because we're talking about Midnighter, like a, Midnighter. I don't know. I wouldn't change Midnighter. I kind of backed out of my.
What about
like Midnighter just the way he is?
What about Punisher? The Punisher mashed up with the Cher from the DC universe.
Cher,
the actual Cher.
Oh, wow.
Like the singer, but she's in the DC universe.
Wow.
Yeah. You don't like that?
I mean,
I love it.
Do you
if
want
I could turn back time, I'd love
more?
for you to say that again. What?
Yeah. If she could turn back Picnic.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Man, it would be fun if like they mashed up Superman and Hyperion. That would be fun. That would be like
smart.
Could you imagine? What would that be like?
Yeah, that would be crazy. What a great combination of characters.
We got one from Omnius Soul. If you could have any superpower, but for only one day, what would you choose and why? Only one day. If it was one day, I would probably choose stealing marriages, because that feels like
you're such an asshole.
Stealing marriages.
Nicely with on. Yes.
I don't know if is that on the Mephisto trading card from Marvel Masterworks. Yeah. Is that his on the back?
Yeah, he had 3 bars. He had 3 bars.
Stealing marriages. Very prescient card series. Hour Man. I'm like 24 hours of powers. I'll just take one sweet hour. Yeah, I can do exactly what I want.
I guess I would go with invisible, and just have one day of looting.
Jesus,
what?
What a weird thing to say, particularly right now.
So looting is? Do you mean just stealing? I don't know. Looting is not something you're often invisible.
Well, yeah, but I would sneak into your home and steal something that I would know
looting.
That's just stealing.
Not looting. Looting is loud. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I meant like just messing with you. Like I would sneak into maybe Zalbin's house and then like move some things around just to be like, wait, was that over there? Just kind of really mess with this set a little bit.
Let me say, Pete, when you come to my house, you do that anyway. So like, I don't know what you need to be invisible for.
That's a good point. Busted.
I'd probably get super speed. I feel like I could get a lot done, like get a lot of chores done and things like that.
Oh, that's a smart way to play out this fantasy. Just get some chores done.
Yeah.
I guess I would just want to be a dream warrior.
Mm-hmm.
Just parade through people's dreams.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
All right. I wasn't sure what type of dream warrior you were.
Yeah, I didn't know if you would like go to people's dreams and then fight them.
No, benevolent. I just go in and be like, whoa, weird.
So you just be like the watcher, basically, of people.
Sky High Superfly guy says no one wants language powers. Language powers. That's dumb. Come on.
Whoa. Wow.
Edward Doherty says, could you all please explain how you told your significant other about your terrible, terrible secret, i.e. collecting comics?
Still haven't told. I got a big sheet over all my comics.
When cheap eyes out.
I'm always just
That's
saying,
why you're outside there now,
exactly.
Right?
I'm like, don't look under there. Don't look under there. It's funny. Molly, my wife, she doesn't has never really expressed much interest in the comics, top to bottom.
Well, it's one of those things where you don't want her to lie to you, because then it's awkward. Like, hey, remember you wanted to check this out, and it's like they never, Yeah,
but don't you want to be like, oh, read this, or have that shared moment?
Yeah, that never goes well.
Interesting. I don't remember when my wife and I first talk about it, but she used to collect Sandman comics, so it wasn't like it was a big secret or anything like that. Like we have in our closet, I have the first 3 trades of Sandman and I've read it, but she had like single issues of Sandman in a stack. She had other comics, so it was just an easy conversation that came up.
Yeah.
And we do that. Like we pass things back and forth. Not as much now that most of the stuff I get is on digital, but there used to be times where like we'd pass stuff back and forth and just read the same comics all the time.
Nice. Did you get fights with her about stuff?
No, we agreed on everything.
Wow.
Amazing. Yeah. You guys have never had a disagreement, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so. She might disagree though.
Yeah. I mean, it's great with my girlfriend now. She loves comics. It's not an issue, whatever. So that's great. And we've talked about stuff, but previously in previous relationships, it's been a real issue. And then one woman I only dated for a very small time, when she found out about my comic books, she goes, "I'm not doing this again. No more with the white boxes. I hate them." And that was kind of the end of the relationship.
Wow. That's a strong statement.
I chose comics.
Good. Don't make me choose. Good, important comment to read from the section here. Sky High Super Fly Guy says, even all the weird sex comics. To Alex.
Yes, Albert, how do you explain that?
Great question. And our next question here is
no,
I don't know. They're in the bookcase. They're with everything else.
Yeah, they're not hidden a little bit.
They're in the back of the bookcase.
High shelf, low shelf.
Yeah,
I love that everybody knows about that. That's just part of you because of our podcast.
Yes. Pablo Di Martinez says, what is the one comic book you find unreadable, then as time goes on you grew to love it to pieces?
Ooh, unreadable to love?
No, just like a comic
you
that it
hated
probably
it, now you love it.
Exactly. Like you could not read it at first, then you revisited it and you liked it quite a bit. Yeah. I do think, I don't know, I haven't revisited them recently, but I think the first time I read through a lot of Grant Morrison stuff, I was like, I don't know what's going on here. Yeah. And then when I went back and read it when I was older, after I had read a lot more of his stuff, after I had read a lot more comics versus just straight superhero comics, I appreciated them a lot more.
Yeah, for me, it was all the wordier stuff and anything that didn't have fighting in the first couple of pages. As I've grown up, I can go back and read that stuff again.
Yeah.
But I see Edward commented here, anything Jack Kirby. That's interesting.
I think that's a great answer. Those are the things that I feel like it takes longer to appreciate is the older original sort of golden age stuff. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll throw out Will Eisner stuff a little bit. Ooh. Where it, I feel like you need to experience a certain amount of the world, I think, to really get those stories. So yeah.
I mean, and this is something we've talked about on the show a lot, but in a slightly more micro way. It wasn't something that I disliked, but we talked about this quite a bit. Watchmen, that like the first time I read Watchmen, I skipped most of the back matter because I wasn't interested. I read the book. I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. But when we revisited it recently for the show, I had such a greater appreciation for it because A, we were talking about it on a weekly basis, but B, just having a better understanding of how comics work, the history of where Watchmen was in the place and time, versus the first time I read it, it was like, Watchmen is good, you should read Watchmen, and that's all the context that I had.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is weird that we wouldn't there's all these like articles at the end of Watchmen issues, and it's like, oh, read this? I don't know.
Yeah. These are interesting ones too. Ben the Border Collie says, I hard passed on Giant Days before giving it a second chance and loving it. That's a great book. I totally get it because it just feels like a very chill hangout book, but it's so much deeper and more poignant than that. Jay Sinison says, I always hated Thor, but I really got it as a grown-up. Does that mean I have dad issues? No, I think that means you have good taste because Walt Simonson's Thor in particular, not to make him the theme of the show, is so good.
Yeah.
And if you've never read it, check it out. Kevin says, what's a comic aimed at young children that you really enjoy as an adult? All of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's I usually dig a lot of stuff for kids, but also the what is it? The Art Balvazar and those guys who do the DC Friends stuff are really amazing.
Tiny Titans,
all that stuff is just so great that they do. I mean, it really depends on who's doing it. Don't let age labeled shit stop you from good story.
Yeah, Alex doesn't let age labels stop him from reading all these porno comics. Never has stopped him.
Justin, what were you going to
I was going to say Adventure Time. The original Archie comics are definitely not super adult themed, but I still like to read those.
Owly is another one that's perfect for kids.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so great. It's such a good book. I mean, Bone is ostensibly for kids as well, and that's really good.
Huge Bone fan.
Yeah.
I have Owly here with me if you want me to invite him on.
Oh, wow.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Invite him into the feed. Yeah.
Let's do it.
I'll just hold my arm up and he'll land on it, right? Like this? Is this how I do it?
Looks like you're trying to walk like an Egyptian right there.
I was doing that.
We got one here from Nelson Martinez. I just started The Boys comic. It's great. Which is your guys' fave character from it? I'm loving me some Black Noir.
Ooh,
and we should mention at this point, if you're not listening, we're doing a Boys recap podcast called Let's Hear It for the Boys. First couple of episodes are up now. We're recapping the first season. We're probably, I think, going to go back and go through some of the comics as well, leading into the second season, which is debuting on September 4th.
Favorite Boys character from the comic is what we're saying?
Yes.
Or from just everything?
I think for the comic.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I'm going to go Huey, just because it's Simon Pegg and the comic is a lot of fun.
Great.
Nice.
Cool. I'd throw out there, I mean, Butcher is fantastic, of course, and in a very different way than the way Carl Urban plays him on the show. He almost is like this smirking uber Punisher in a way, the way that Derek Robertson draws him, the way that Garth Ennis writes him. And it feels like a natural extension of that in a way that shows you a different side of the damage that a character like that could get.
That's good. I mean, there's something about Homelander to just really the perversity of that. I think I always like, and especially as it plays out in the show, I think that's very into that.
Yeah. From Ben the Border Collie, speaking of Midnighter and Apollo, who other than that pair is your favorite comic couple?
Ooh.
Favorite
comic couple.
What stinks is I would say Midnighter and Apollo is one of my favorites.
The question said other than them, Pete.
I know.
You can't say that.
You can't say them. So it's the one couple you can't say.
Okay. All right.
Great answer. Punisher and his
guns.
Does he have a gun that he loves the most that he kisses?
He loves them all. He loves
equally?
them all. Yeah.
It's like a harem.
Punisher and Microchip, maybe?
It's not.
The original romance? Yorick and the Monkey. I've said this before on the show, but I like, and I know we argue about this every time I bring it up, but I like Reed and Sue. I think Reed and Sue are great.
Oh, why would you say that?
I do.
Like shit, you
I
asshole.
like them.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Such a dumb thing to say.
No, Namor and Sue. Listen, Namor is a cuck, is what he is. All right,
Reed's not much better.
That's a crazy statement.
No, Namor is an asshole. He's trying to break up the marriage always, and like Reed and Sue love each other. And even though he's into his work, Sue understands it, understands him. He understands her. I don't know. There's something about that relationship that just works for me.
Wow, interesting.
Him being busy all the time and her supporting him no matter what.
Yeah, I was going to say.
There's something about that.
Yeah. Love Scott and Barda in the comments from Beercat.
White Panther and Storm is a great one.
That's a good one. A fleeting couple, unfortunately. Talking about fleeting couple, I'm going to throw out Domino and Colossus was my sort of.
That is a good one.
One of my more recent favorite couples has been that. I love Silver Sable and Spider-Man as well.
That's not a real couple.
They sort of dated.
No.
They flirted. They flirted a little
count.
bit. They flirted.
Count. That's not a couple. That doesn't mean you're a couple.
Well, okay. Couple police over here.
Yeah.
Relationship can be anything.
What about Bert Ramdam over on YouTube says Scott and Emma?
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I'm a fan of that relationship.
I agree.
Yeah, two a-holes being together. Great.
Two a-holes.
The worst. Team up the two worst people.
It's not a team. A relationship isn't technically a team up.
That kind of is.
It's the ultimate team up.
Yeah,
It's the ultimate team.
It's kind of like a crossover, I think. Bendito740 says, speaking of not liking something too much from the beginning, I've started reading Cerebus. I made it through the first book. It's a ton more reading. Have you guys ever read it? If so, is it worth it? I got to tell you, the only way that I knew Cerebus was through crossovers with Gru and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is what I was going to say.
And I was like, wow, who's this guy? I don't know who this guy is. Anyway, moving on. And I didn't realize until years later that it was actually a comic book in its own right.
I feel like there's just a subgenre, and Cerebus is a huge entry in it, of like Avatar for like angry, curmudgeonly writer. And it's just them going around being like, ugh, here we are at the post office. And it's like, okay, is this a comic? It's like reading someone's diary.
Is this a comic?
Yeah, I'd be actually interested in going back and reading that one because I always forget that it exists. This is from Jay Citizen. You get an anything goes run as the sole writer of your favorite superhero book, but your run only lasts. Oh, this is going to get dark real quick. Only lasts as long as you can have him or her say the title of at least one post on the Trump 2020 subreddit every issue. Do you do it? And how long would you last?
No. I would not do that.
That's a great question. We get this question a lot.
Yeah.
I think
people are probably tired of hearing us answer this question.
Yeah,
it's
that's
a very popular question out there. I'm going to say Batman. I could pull it off with Batman for a while.
Wait, so this is the Trump 2020 subreddit. No, I want to look at some of the titles to understand like
the Trump 2020 subreddit, I believe, just got shut down, or one of them did recently because it was truly a nightmare place.
Yeah, I'm going to search it, and this is going to really...
Yeah.
Alex, don't it's going to mess up your algorithm for weeks.
So badly. Yeah, it's not coming up. It's not coming up.
Your computer's like, you don't want to know this.
I feel like
it really did
Punisher
just get shut down.
I think you could do the Punisher for a while. Right? And just like organically work it in there.
Don't.
No.
I mean, I feel like a lot of Punisher books, he's just saying that stuff anyway.
There was an entire run of the Punisher where he was just posting on the Trump 2020 subreddit. I remember that. Very distinctly.
But the Frank Castle's on Trump's shortlist to replace Pence. So, and he said he knows he's fictional. He still is like into it. He's like, cops got him on their shirts.
Fuck you.
I love
him. Pete's not even playing. This ties nicely into this next
play
question.
Along, Pete.
No.
Yeah. This is a question from Nick Kelly. What are your favorite and least favorite CBC TV podcast running bits, i.e. The Dark in Riverdale After Dark, Superman Trivia and After Krypton, or maybe something from Preacher Men? A hashtag, maybe? That's weird. I don't. Was there a hashtag we tried to get trending?
Nope.
It's funny. I don't know if we didn't try to get it trending. I use it to flag a lot of important posts for me. It's a very functional hashtag because I like to look back and I marry the pictures I have of when Pete was a human sexual dog with a lot of those posts where we're talking about him. Because Pete's actually opened up his archive and is releasing a lot of photographs.
Nope.
Yeah, it's really wonderful, by the way, Pete. So thank you so much for doing that. It's
beautiful.
It's historical data that I think is important for all of us to have. Hashtag Pete the Poodle.
Hashtag Pete the Poodle. Pete Bull.
Yeah. Is there, Pete, you don't like any of the running bits?
No, I hate most of them.
What is one you like? What's a running? Because honestly, like, they're just fun. The stakes couldn't be.
I like the bit of Alex being a perv, and I like the.
No, that's not a bit.
And then
that's just life. That's just real.
Okay.
Life.
All right. Well, you said that out loud. And I like the fact that Justin's always late. Those are my two favorite running bits.
It's also not a bit. Also, I'm not always late. This is
yeah, you are.
Wow, you're often late. I'm trying to think of. I guess the least favorite was when on the Krypton podcast when Pete would get so angry it was difficult to be there. Still, you know what I mean?
None of these are bits. None of these are running bits.
Yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, that was difficult.
Or the what was it? Cloak and Dagger that I couldn't watch at all, and then couldn't do the show for a little bit.
I love that we're fondly reminiscing over some of the most painful times in our lives.
Yep.
I will say, to compliment you, Pete, a running bit that I like is you saying Betty all day, day on our Riverdale podcast.
Very fun.
That is very fun and clearly caught on with the people. Straight Bullet says, my favorite bit is when Pete says, fuck you. And Bert Rabdam says, Pete's Arrow Corner is great. And actually, that's all the time we have for this question.
Yes.
This is from Josh. Is there a character who is a knockoff of another character who surpassed the original character in your esteem?
Ooh, great stuff.
A character who is a knockoff of the original character. I mean, this is probably based on the Midnighter thing. I don't think Midnighter is necessarily better than Batman, but he is more fascinating and engaging in certain ways. And he also has an opportunity to grow, which Batman doesn't necessarily have.
Yeah, I will say there's a difference between like a knockoff and a legacy character, like in the case of a lot of DC stuff. And is it considered a knockoff if it's like a satirical take?
Well, somebody here brings up Deadpool over Deathstroke. And yeah, I mean, I think
that's accurate. Wow. Edward Doherty, love it.
But yeah, I mean, there's Wally West, there's I think that like sometimes like the whole joke of like the Foot Clan being a kind of bit on the Hand, and as a kid, I didn't know what the Hand was for a while, and then thought the Foot Clan was the best. So, I mean, there's some times where people are kind of doing inside jokes, and it becomes bigger than it's supposed to be, but nothing that like really is like, oh my God, I mean. I know Lobo's a bunch of stuff, but I would think that Deadpool,
Wolverine ripoff.
Yeah, well, watch your mouth. Deadpool like really became the most popular, and that was kind of clearly making fun of other things.
I mean, this is a weird answer, but the Young Blue Beetle, I think, was a Spider-Man homage or like take Spider-Manning that character, and I really thought those were great stories, especially at a time when Spider-Man felt like. It wasn't Spider-Man stories anymore, and the like young kid trying to get by but blowing it all the time.
Yeah. It's also, I mean, this is something that we're going to be talking about on the Stack podcast tomorrow, but there's a book coming out called All America Comics, which is Joe Casey, who co-created America Chavez, basically just doing that book, but for Image Comics. Without spoiling too much of it, it's real good, but it's like straight up aping that character from Marvel and then putting it in a new universe, which is wild.
To the point where I was like, how does that work?
Yeah, how do you legally do this?
Because I was reading it being like, is this?
Yeah. But that's great. Definitely pick that up. And we'll talk about that more again on the Stack podcast. Question here from Hollywood Homer: in the Comic Book Club podcast universe, how long do you all see the main podcast going? Will it get passed down when you're tired?
Oh, wow.
We're
huge
already
statement.
Very tired, first of all. Second of all, we don't.
Does that mean your guys' kids are going to take over this podcast? Is that what?
Well, I was going to say we don't talk about this a whole lot, but we all have young wards. We have been training to eventually take our places when we fall in battle.
I still haven't found anyone angry enough to take my spot, but we'll see.
See, I always considered us sort of a Highlander situation where eventually one of us has to kill the other two and then gets all the power and knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Right, Pete?
Sure.
Great. Thanks. All right, we got one here from Edward Doherty. Wait, have you discussed the Keaton Batman news? Yeah, we talked about that a little bit on our Week in Geek podcast, which is exclusive to Patreon subscribers. But for those of you who missed it, the news is that Michael Keaton is in talks to reprise the role of Bruce Wayne Batman for the Flash movie and potentially more movies beyond that. Any Any takes on that? Any further thoughts since the last time we talked about it?
I mean, anytime you're looking to add Michael Keaton, you're making it a better property. So I don't know why you wouldn't.
Now, as a huge Flash fan, Pete, do you feel like it's not a great spot for him, or are you like perfect, right where I want to see my Keaton in the middle of a Flash movie?
Well, he's Batmaning it up, so I don't give a shit what movie it is, you know. But I'm not excited about a Flash movie, but if Michael Keaton's in it, I'll go see it.
Yeah, I actually have a feeling you might not end up liking that Michael Keaton thing. Because it's Flash, it's also a Flashpoint. It's not just a Flash movie; it's Flashpoint.
Yeah, and to the questions here in the comments, he's supposed to be Bruce Wayne, not Thomas Wayne. So who knows what they're doing? Also, recast Ezra Miller, get him off of that project. But there we go. Yeah. Question here from Pete's Punisher Apron: are you guys ever going to do a Doom Patrol podcast? And a follow up. I'm excited. The answer is yes.
Wow,
we should. It's such a great
Punisher
show.
Apron's coming hard on that Doom Patrol.
We know.
Have you seen?
Tell you what,
the new apps?
Here's the answer.
Oh, it's so good.
Yes, they're fantastic. They launched 3 episodes on DC Universe, right, as well as on HBO Max. New ones coming out this week. Great. The show is great. I'll tell you what, we are gonna launch another TV podcast coming up soon. It's not Doom Patrol though.
Wow, that's almost an affront to answer the question that way.
Yeah, we
should have done Doom Patrol.
Yeah, we really
no regrets. No, we didn't mess up.
We sure did.
Here, a question from Pablo D. Martinez. How do you guys think of DC Comics bringing their books on Tuesdays? What do you think about that? Because that doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon. They're not going back to Wednesdays just because comics are coming out in shops.
Yeah, it does feel weird that it's not talked about more as a thing. It's just what's happening.
Yeah, and Dark Horse says they're going with Diamond. So, like, it's a weird thing where people are picking sides of like what's going to happen. I'm not happy about Diamond. I would like one place to go to be able to see what comics are coming out when. And I do like having one day that's New Comic Book Day, just because it's like being like, all right, I'm going to go on Wednesdays. I don't know. It feels easier, but I don't know, man, if more comics can get made by not having to go through certain routes, I'd be all for that.
The good thing about Wednesdays is the Tuesday comics are there.
Yeah. It does feel a little arbitrary, all of the date stuff. Like, comics have to come out on Wednesday. Movies come out on Friday, but kind of on Thursday night.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is still true, but like music is on Wednesdays. Like you don't need to have something be a specific day of the week or anything like that. There's no reason, particularly given that everything is digital, everything is on demand all the time. And if you want it, you want it now. Get the product to people quicker, particularly for a relatively niche industry like comics. Get it out faster. I think that's fine for DC to do it. I think other publishers follow suit. I like the tradition of New Comic Book Day. Certainly, it's the reason we built the show the way that we did.
Yes.
But it's okay to break it and move on to something else.
What would we do then? Will we switch days?
We haven't yet.
That's a great point. We would have to do our show Monday at midnight.
Right.
Ooh.
Well, we'd have to do 2 shows. We'd have to do Monday just about DC and then Tuesday about everything else.
Yes. And then we'd have to do our church recap on Sunday afternoon.
Well, we do that anyway.
Of course.
No.
We should release that. That's sort of a Doom Patrol.
Justin, I'm kind of worried about your face, man. It's getting red.
Nelson Martinez, we'll wrap up here quickly. Don't worry. Nelson Martinez says, do you guys have any interest in going back to movie theaters when they reopen, or would you rather wait a bit longer?
Oh, I'm waiting it out, man. I'm not gambling with my life. You can kiss my ass.
Yeah, I mean, it bums me out, but I don't feel safe going back to a movie theater at this point. Like, I was thinking about it just with New York currently wondering whether we should actually have indoor dining at restaurants at all, because other states have seen such a spike in the virus as soon as they're like, yeah, you can go indoors everywhere, versus New York. We still have a couple of hundred people a day getting it, but it's much lower, and it's staying, knock on wood, much lower for a while. Just do everything outdoors. Like, that's fine.
Just what Justin does.
Exactly.
Well, they're opening up all of these drive-in movie theaters, and that's a weird thing for New York because most of us don't have cars, but I'm okay with coming, let's change society in some way so that things are outdoors or things are a little more isolated. And I think that's okay. Again, it gets back to like that tradition thing where I love going to the movies and I love sitting in an air-conditioned movie theater, eating popcorn, eating snacks, watching a dumb movie.
With everybody going nuts.
It's great, but like we'll figure out another way to do it, and it'll be good in a different way,
Yeah, I want to watch Snowpiercer on the top of a train speeding north in the middle of January. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, love it.
I want to eat that red light you're seeing is the sun setting.
Oh, wow.
And a pastoral
well, why don't you move the camera? You've been moving the camera. Why don't you give us a nice little shot, big guy?
What? I don't want the sun coming right at it.
I want to see it.
A couple of comments here about this very subject. Sky High Superfly guy says, wow, that's gorgeous.
Fuck you, you fucking piece of shit. You're on a fucking dock.
No, I'm on a porch, but I had to drive so far to get here.
Jesus Christ.
I'm up further north than even where garbage plates proffer.
Wow. They can't climb up the hill to get there. That's amazing.
It's like I had to go through Mordor and drop a garbage plate into all the bunch of fucked up places to get up here.
One does not simply drop a garbage plate into Mordor.
This guy gets it very internet.
So a couple of quick comments on the movie thing before we start to wrap up here. Sky High Superfly guy says, New Mutants better be in the theater to get me back in there. Meanwhile, let's see, where was it? Jace the Archer says, the Batman might be the only thing that can get me into a COVID-19 laced theater.
Wow.
And is there a movie that you're like, you know what, I'm going to risk it all for this?
I mean, as we all know, you got to risk it to get the biscuit. But I mean, what is gonna be?
That is, we do all.
We all know that. You don't need to.
Yeah,
and we should say the three of us met. We were rats working in a science lab, trying to solve a maze. That's how we first bonded over liking comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I would do it for the next Batman movie. Ben, the Border Collie, just said Jane Foster Thor. I mean, that would be phenomenal. I might, for Wonder Woman, the next one, I might, lather myself in, just some kind of Clorox mix that I make, and then,
burning.
Yeah, but I'm very excited for the next Wonder Woman movie for sure.
I guess Punisher Dirty Laundry would be the only thing to get me out the door.
Bandito740 says, could you imagine if you got COVID and you had to tell people it's because you went and seen the new Black Widow movie? I've got one for you. What if it's like you went to see Tenet,
Wow.
That's just, I don't know. There's nothing that could get me back in a theater until they're like, yes, it is 100% safe.
What if it's like the Alex Zalben story?
Your own movie?
Yeah.
About you? Movie. I like the idea of talking about Tenet, that eventually Christopher Nolan is just going to be like, I released Tenet 6 months ago.
Here, actually, before we wrap up, let's finish on this question because I think this ties into some stuff that a lot of people are talking about right now. Bert Ramdam says, how about an outdoors Comic-Con? On a similar note, they're doing this Comic-Con at home, which we also talked about on the Week in Geek podcast for Patreon, and I think I was a little iffy on. Since then, they've announced a bunch more TV panels in particular, like they're having The Walking Dead is doing their regular block. There's a bunch of other nerdy TV shows like that. The new Bill and Ted movie is doing a panel. So it definitely seems like they're trying to put a lot of bigger panels in that. How do you feel about this Comic-Con at home thing?
I mean, I think it's making the best of the situation. I think it's good. I mean, there's a lot to be said for doing it that way. It's not the worst way to experience the things you experience at a Comic-Con.
Pete,
yeah, I mean,
take on this?
It's interesting because it's like, for me, I love seeing what people come as, what they dress up as. The people watching at a Comic-Con is unbelievable. You get to meet some amazing people. You bond over stuff, and it's taking the people element out of Comic-Con is kind of sad. But if they are going to kind of do a interactive panel, maybe you don't have to stand in a line. You can kind of like, figure out a queue. So that might be interesting, but I don't know. Like, for me, the people is a huge part of going to a convention. So,
and of course, the food. Let's not forget about those ribs.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one time.
Stray Bullet mentions it'll reach a lot more people I never used to get into the good panels. I do think that's great. Like, it's free. A lot of folks are doing this anyway. I mean, there's constant cast reunions happening at this point online.
Yeah, Reunited Apart is a lot of fun.
Yeah, so I do think that like cuts into the specialness of Comic-Con a little bit. I'm like you said, they're doing the best with a bad situation, so I'm glad they're still doing this stuff. But there is a thing that you're going to inherently miss about the live experience, and it's not just about the exclusivity. It's about being in a room with 500, 1,000, 6,000 fans who are all feeling the same way about something. That's, to me, those are the things that I remember more than the battle. Like, I remember being in the Marvel panel when they showed off Infinity War footage for the first time, and everybody like sobbing and screaming at the same time, or the Doctor Who panel at San Diego Comic-Con when it was running late and everybody started doing, there's the bad guy of Doctor Who is the Master, and he has these knocks that he does in time. And everybody started doing them simultaneously. And it's just this thing where it's like, you end up in this group think with everybody where it becomes this special thing where you're like, oh, these are the people who like the same thing I do. And you get that, nothing against what literally we're doing right now. I think you get that in a sense from the comments section, from seeing people chatting and watching and listening to something at the same time. But there is physically being in that same space that gives you a charge in a different way.
Yeah, but at the same time, we don't know what Kevin is wearing right now. You know what I mean? Kevin comes dressed up to Comic Book Club. He wears interesting outfits. You don't know what you're going to get. Usually it's the, top hat with the trench coat type of thing, but it changes. Sometimes one time he had a puppet the whole time, never addressed it. So what do you do then?
And Kevin, you should know that Pete texts us every day, what is Kevin wearing? So that isn't even, it's just this thing that occurs on his mind.
It's unrelated. All right, and that is it for your audience questions.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move on to our next section, which is trivia. And for that, we're going to turn it over to Pete LePage.
All right.
There he is.
Looking for first hand up guy or gal.
All you have to do in the comments is say first hand up or me or something like that,
or hey,
raise hand, hello, anything like that, and we will bring you into the stream, and you
could be in the woods, you could be anywhere.
A $25 gift card to Midtown Comics. Nobody wants to win one?
All right. What about on the tube? Anybody raising their hand on the tube?
Ooh, should we go to the tube? Should we do a comment thing on the tube? Let's do it on the tube this time. Is there anybody on the tube?
Stop calling it that.
The wide tube? Should we call it YouTube? If there's anybody watching over on YouTube who wants to do trivia, we got architectural foam panels and columns on YouTube says hand up.
Yeah.
So here's how we're going to do it. We're on a little bit of a delay on YouTube, so this is going to be super awkward. But Pete's going to ask the question. You put the answer in the comments since we can't bring you video-wise into the feed, and we'll let you know if it's correct. So, Pete, ask the first question, please.
All right. So today's trivia is on topical comic news.
Nice.
All right.
Good.
All right. Question number 1. Evan Goldberg and blank signed on to produce what reboot? Is it A, Gremlins, B, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or is it C, Liv Schreiber? So it's either A, don't pick it, or it's B.
Nice. Architectural foam panels and columns says got it. So he or she is up to the point where we said just answer the question.
This is good.
Just to give you an idea of the delay that's going on here.
And this is just the element we've missed in trivia is a strong delay.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do we got? A, B, or C? Just drop that answer.
We all know the answer now. What are we? We're waiting for something.
Yeah. Why don't we just say he got it and move on?
Yeah. All you got to say the answer here. He put ... Here, I'm going to type say B.
Yeah.
B. He says B.
All right. Great.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yeah. There we go.
All right. Question number 2. What big hit is coming to comics? Is it A, Star Wars The Mandalorian, B, the Michael Jordan docuseries, or is it C, Adolf Hitler? So it's either A, so you can be correct, or you can pick something else and be completely wrong.
Oh boy. He said B.
Well, he's talking. You said say B, so he responded with B.
Okay. All right. There we go.
Yes, come on, Zelvin.
All right. Sorry about that. So he'll answer the second question, which, as we all know, the answer is A.
Well, now we could do a brief news hit, or if anyone has a commercial or something that they want to read.
All right.
Time.
So let's go on with question 3.
Oh,
no,
we said A. There we go.
Nice.
He got it. Yes.
All right.
Question number 3.
In 2021, if we make it, London will be opening a real-life blank / mega city. Is it A, Judge Dredd, B, John Constantine, or C, Alan Arkin? So it's either A, Judge Dredd mega city, which makes the most sense, or you could say B, John Constantine, which is an amazing answer, but wrong.
So let's see. Let's wait for his answer here. To question number 3. He did specify the question number 2.
Did you say it's C?
It's C is Alan Arkin. C is not the correct answer.
Okay, not Adolf Hitler again?
No.
Okay.
Very curious what the other quiz is going to be about.
Yeah, you have we can specify if you're listening for the first time. Pete has a sub quiz where things add up. Ooh, question 3. A? Is that the answer?
Correct.
That's correct. Congratulations.
25.
Architectural
Nice.
foam panels and columns. You're going to get a $25 gift card to Midtown Comics. Just shoot us an email at comicbookclublive@gmail.com with your name and email address, and we will get it off to you so you can safely and remotely buy comics. Pete, you've got 3 characters that add up to maybe a Robin Williams movie.
That is correct.
Is it, as Edward Doherty guesses, 1941?
No, it is not. Liv Schreiber, Adolf Hitler, who plays himself, and Alan Arkin. It is Jacob the Liar is the correct answer.
Oh, wait. Jace the Archer got it. Jacob the Liar watched it 3 days ago for the first time.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow, what a coincidence.
Nice. Before we wrap up here, as we all know, other than DC Comics, tomorrow is New Comic Book Day. What are you guys looking forward to that's coming out? I know I already mentioned All America Comics. I think that's such a wild project, and I always love Joe Casey. Very excited for people to check that out. And as mentioned, that's going to be a review on our Stack podcast that comes out Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pete, what about you?
I'm looking forward to 2, Star Trek Year 5, number 12, and Ghostbusters Year 1, number 4.
There you go. Very into years, Pete.
Yeah, that's good.
Justin,
and
what
stuff
about you?
that used to be in pop culture. I'm looking forward to Star number 5 from Marvel Comics, a book we've talked about a lot, and this is wrapping up the series, and it's very cool. I hope.
Nice. All right. There we go, folks. Thank you so much for coming out here to our show. Oop, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. I did it right. I know how to do sound cues. Thanks for coming out to our show. First of all, thanks to our guests, Daniel Kibblesmith and Adam Lawson. From Adam Lawson, go pick up The 8th. Daniel Kibblesmith, go pick up Harley Quinn, Black, White, and Red, whenever that comes out, as well as the Loki trade paperback, which is out everywhere now. A couple of things for us. As we mentioned earlier, we have a boys podcast called Let's Hear It for the Boys. We also have a Stargirl podcast called Star Guys that has 2 episodes a week, Monday mornings for the recap, and then Tuesday for a bonus episode. We have a very special, very fun bonus episode this week.
Yes,
we talked to Nelson Lee, who plays Dragon King on the show, and he was great. That's going to be up, if you're watching live, shortly in the Star Guys feed. Otherwise, it's already there. Just go and enjoy it. Next week on the show, we got 2 great guests for you. Neil Clyde is going to be here. Also, Zayd Chun, who is the editor-in-chief of TKO Studios, and also the showrunner of the new animated Gremlins series, which is the only thing I'm going to ask him about because I'm obsessed with Gremlins. If you want to support us, patreon.com/comic book club. Also, iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe and listen to the show. comicbookclublive.com for this podcast. More at Comic Book Live on Twitter. And that's it. Thank you all so much. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you next week.
Good night, guys. Thank you. As the sun dips below the horizon, the Comic Book Club goes to sleep. Good evening, Comic Book Club.
And good evening to all of you.